I thought the worst thing my parents could do was cut me off until they filed papers to take the only thing I own, the little bungalow my grandma left me. When the judge asked about the notary stamp, my mom went silent. Then the bailiff started walking toward them. That's when I knew 28 years of being their daughter meant nothing compared to what they wanted from me. They'd forged my signature, faked a deed, and used an expired notary seal to steal my home. But they forgot one thing: I keep every receipt, every email, every scrap of paper, and I had proof I was saving lives at the hospital the exact moment they claimed I signed my house away. My name is Elena Brooks, and the little bungalow on Maple Street was supposed to be my fresh start. Grandma May left it to me 2 years ago, along with her collection of wind chimes that still sang from the front porch whenever the Illinois breeze picked up. At 28, working as a pediatric nurse at North Harbor Children's Hospital, I finally had something that was entirely mine, no strings attached, no conditions, no one looking over my shoulder. The house wasn't much to look at from the outside. White paint peeling in places, shutters that needed replacing, and a roof that had cost me 3 months of overtime to fix last spring. But inside, it was perfect. Grandma's reading nook by the window, the kitchen with its sunny yellow walls, the creaky wooden floors that groaned a welcome every time I came home from a 12-hour shift. Every corner held a memory of her, the woman who'd actually seen me, not just what I could do for the family. My parents, Martha and Leonard Brooks, had never understood why Grandma May bypassed them in her will. They owned a pristine colonial across town, drove matching Lexuses, and ran a successful accounting firm. They didn't need this house, but need had never stopped them from wanting. "You're rattling around in all that space," Mom said during our monthly dinner at their house, cutting her chicken with surgical precision. "Your father and I have been thinking we could move in temporarily, help you manage the paperwork, the maintenance. You work such long hours." "Sweetheart," I pushed my peas around my plate. "I'm managing fine, Mom." "Are you?" Dad set down his wine glass with that particular clink that meant a lecture was coming. "The property taxes alone must be eating through your salary, and that roof repair, we know what those cost." "I handled it. By working yourself to death," Mom added, her voice dripping concern that didn't reach her eyes. "We're family. Elena, family shares resources. That house is a family asset that belonged to my mother. Grandma left it to me." The words came out sharper than I intended. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Dad cleared his throat. "We're just trying to help." Help. That word had haunted my childhood. Help meant Mom signing me up for credit cards at 16 to build your credit, then maxing them out. Help meant Dad taking my babysitting money to invest it properly and never seeing a dime returned. Help meant learning at 14 to hide my birthday cash in a tampon box because it was the only place they wouldn't search. After dinner, I drove home through the dark streets of Riverton, my headlights cutting through the October fog. The hospital had been brutal that week. 3 emergency surgeries in pediatric ICU, double shifts to cover for the flu outbreak. But as I pulled into my driveway and saw my little bungalow waiting, porch light glowing warm against the night, exhaustion melted into relief. I'd paid every bill on this place myself. Electric, water, property taxes all in my name, all from my checking account. The filing cabinet in Grandma's old office held every receipt, every statement, proof that this house ran on my sweat and determination alone. My parents hadn't contributed a penny, and I intended to keep it that way. That night, I sat in Grandma May's rocking chair, her Afghan around my shoulders, and called Noah. My boyfriend's voice was tired. He'd been dealing with a system failure at the plant, but it warmed when he heard me. "Rough dinner with the parents. They want to move in, to help with paperwork." Noah snorted. "Right. Like they helped with your college fund, that they borrowed against and never repaid. That help? Elena, you need boundaries with them. Real ones." I stared at the framed photo on the mantel Grandma May and me at my nursing school graduation, her proud smile worth more than any inheritance. "I know. This house is my boundary. They can't touch it." How wrong I was. 3 weeks later, I'd learned that when it came to my parents. Boundaries were just obstacles to overcome, and they'd already started the paperwork to tear mine down. The envelope from the Willard County Recorder's office arrived on a Tuesday. I'd just finished a brutal overnight shift, my scrubs still smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion weighing down my bones. The official seal made my stomach drop before I even opened it. Notice of property transfer recording, the header read. My hands shook as I scanned the document. According to this paper, I had signed over 50% ownership of my house to Martha and Leonard Brooks 3 weeks ago. A quitclaim deed was attached, complete with my signature and a notary seal. I sank onto my porch steps, the November cold biting through my thin scrubs. The signature looked like mine the way I curved my E, the little flourish on the K in Brooks. But I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't even seen my parents since that dinner. The second page made my blood run cold. Notice of partition action pending. They weren't just claiming half my house. They were moving to force a sale or demanding I buy them out of their share. My phone rang. Mom. Elena, sweetie, you got the paperwork. We tried to handle this quietly, but the lawyer said everything needs to be official. You understand? What did you do? My voice came out strangled. We're just formalizing our arrangement, the one where we helped with the house expenses. You really should keep better records. Dear. But don't worry, we can work out a payment plan if you want to buy us out. I hung up. My hands trembled as I called Noah. They did what? His voice went from sleepy to alert in seconds. There's a deed, with my signature. I didn't sign anything. Noah. I was working 3 weeks ago. I pulled doubles all that week. Don't talk to them again. Not a word. We're getting you a lawyer today. The signature haunted me as I sat in my kitchen, comparing it to every document I could find. It was close, too close. Then a memory surfaced, sharp and bitter. Senior year of high school, Mom needed me to sign some banking forms for a joint account. For emergencies. She'd stood over me, correcting my signature. More flourish on the K, Elena. It looks more professional. I'd practiced that signature for an hour under her watch, never questioning why it mattered so much. Now I knew. She'd been collecting samples, teaching me to sign the way she needed me to. That afternoon, I drove to the recorder's office, my hospital ID badge still around my neck. The clerk, a kind woman named Dorothy, pulled up the deed on her screen. Filed 3 weeks ago, November 2nd, at 2:15 p.m., she said. Notarized by... She squinted. James Kellerman, commission number 4478826. November 2nd. I grabbed my phone, pulling up my work schedule. I was in surgery, pediatric emergency, started at 1:30 p.m., didn't finish until 5:45 p.m. I can prove it. Dorothy's expression shifted. Honey, you might want to verify that notary commission number. Something about it looks off. I took a photo of the screen and drove straight to North Harbor. Human Resources confirmed what I already knew. I'd been logged in. Badge swiped, present in OR3 for the entire afternoon of November 2nd. The security footage would show me nowhere near any notary. Back home, I found more documents in my mail. Bank statements showing my parents had accessed an old joint account from my teenage years, one I'd forgotten existed. They'd deposited $200 into it last month, then withdrawn it the same day. But on paper, it looked like they'd given me money for house expenses. The weight of their deception crushed down on me. This wasn't impulse. This was planned, methodical, executed with the same precision they used to run their accounting firm. They'd built a paper trail, forged my signature, and even created fake evidence of financial support. I sat on Grandma May's porch that night, her wind chimes singing a mournful tune. The house that was supposed to be my sanctuary had become a battlefield, but as I watched the stars appear over Riverton's skyline, something hard crystallized in my chest. They'd taught me to keep receipts, to document everything, to never trust anyone with my finances. They'd trained me to be the perfect victim, but they'd also trained me to be the perfect witness to my own life. and I had 4 years of nursing schedules, security badges, and timestamps that would prove exactly where I was when they claimed I signed away my home. Ava Delgado's office occupied the second floor of a converted Victorian downtown, squeezed between a coffee shop and a tax prep service. Unlike the gleaming law firms my parents used, her waiting room had mismatched chairs and a coffee maker that looked older than me. But her eyes, sharp, dark, missing nothing, told me I'd found the right person. "Forged quitclaim deed," she said, examining the documents through reading glasses. "Fraudulent notarization. Possible elder abuse if they'd tried this while your grandmother was alive. This is criminal, not just civil." She spread the papers across her desk like evidence at a crime scene. "The notary seal that's our smoking gun. Every notary has a unique commission number. Let's verify this one." One phone call to the Secretary of State's office later, her expression turned predatory. "James Kellerman's notary commission was revoked 10 months ago for misconduct. He couldn't have legally notarized anything in November. So the deed is fake. Faker than a $3 bill, but we need to build an airtight case. Your parents will claim you authorized them to sign for you, that the notary issue was an innocent mistake. We need to bury them in evidence." She pulled out a legal pad. "I need everything. Email histories with searchable metadata. Every bank statement showing you paid for the house, insurance policies, utility bills, tax records, and most importantly," she looked up, "proof of where you were when this was supposedly signed." I spent the next 3 days assembling my life in document form. Noah helped, his engineering mind creating spreadsheets that tracked every penny I'd spent on the house. The roof repair, $12,000 from my savings. The property taxes, $3,200 twice a year from my checking account. The new water heater, the fence repair, the tree removal after the summer storm. All me. At the hospital, my supervisor, Janet, pulled my time records without question. 3 weeks ago, you were here for 56 hours that week. We had the RSV outbreak. You barely left the ICU. The security footage was even better. November 2nd, 2:15 p.m. The exact time I supposedly signed the deed showed me in surgical scrubs, assisting Dr. Kumar with the emergency appendectomy on a 6-year-old. Then I found the power of attorney document, hidden in my parents' banking folder from my high school years, a POA they'd had me sign at 17 for college financial aid purposes. It had expired 5 years ago, but they'd photocopied it, whited out the dates, and used it at my old bank to access information about my accounts. "This is a pattern of fraud," Ava said when I brought her the evidence. "They've been planning this for years." The county notary division proved even more helpful. James Kellerman hadn't just been revoked, he'd been prosecuted for notarizing documents without the signers present. My parents' names appeared in his client list. "They knew," I said, staring at the printout. "They knew he was dirty." "They counted on it," Ava corrected. "Now, here's what we're going to do. We're filing a quiet title action to confirm you as the sole owner. We're also filing a motion to strike the fraudulent deed and requesting sanctions against your parents for filing false documents. And," she smiled, "we're asking for full legal fees and punitive damages." But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source. Dorothy from the recorder's office called me. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," she said quietly, "but I pulled the file history. Your parents tried to file a similar deed last year, but it was rejected for improper formatting. This wasn't their first attempt." I sat in my car outside the courthouse, phone in hand. Ava had explicitly told me not to contact my parents, but texts kept coming. "Mom, you're being dramatic. We can work this out as a family." "Dad, don't waste money on lawyers. We just want what's fair." "Mom, you owe us for 18 years of raising you." That last one made me laugh bitter and sharp. I screenshot every message, forwarding them to Ava. Noah found the final piece that night, working his IT magic on the deed document. The metadata shows this PDF was created October 28th, but supposedly notarized November 2nd. They made the document before the notarization date. How is that possible? It's not, unless they forged it after the fact. He pulled me close. We've got them. Elena. Every angle, every lie, documented and proven. I looked around my little house, Grandma May's house with its creaky floors and wind chimes and memories. My parents had taught me to document everything, to keep receipts, to create paper trails. They'd just never expected me to use those skills against them. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. Ava filed our evidence under seal to prevent my parents from seeing it early. "Let them walk into that courtroom thinking you're just a confused daughter," she said. "They're about to learn what happens when you try to steal from someone who keeps better records than 2 accountants combined." The ambush came at St. Matthew's after Sunday service. I'd been avoiding my parents for 2 weeks, but Mom knew my routines. She intercepted me in the parking lot, Dad flanking my driver's side door. "Elena, this is ridiculous," Mom said. Her church smile fixed, but her eyes hard as flint. "Filing court papers against your own parents. What will people think?" "I didn't file anything against you. I'm just protecting what's mine." Dad stepped closer, his voice dropping to that tone he used when negotiating contracts. "Drop the lawyer, Elena. We've already spent $8,000 on legal fees because of your tantrum. That's money we could have used for your brother's wedding." "What brother? I'm an only child." "Future family expenses, then," Mom corrected smoothly. "The point is, families don't sue each other." "We're prepared to be generous. We'll take just 30% ownership instead of 50. Consider it payment for raising you." Payment. The word tasted like ash. "You mean beyond the college fund you drained, the credit cards you destroyed, the savings bonds from Grandma you cashed. Mom's mask slipped. Everything we did was as your parents. That house belongs to the family legacy. My mother would be appalled at your selfishness. Grandma May left it to me specifically because she knew what you'd do with it." The slap came so fast I barely saw it. Not physical. Mom was too smart for that in a church parking lot. But her words hit harder than any palm could. "You want to play legal games? Fine. We have documentation showing we paid your living expenses for years. Every birthday check, every Christmas gift, every dinner we bought you. It adds up to far more than that house is worth." They'd prepared a folder. Of course they had. Photocopies of checks from my childhood, receipts from family dinners, even a spreadsheet calculating 18 years of child-rearing expenses with interest. This is insane. Those were gifts. I was your child. "And now you're an adult who owes us," Dad said. "We can file this as a separate lawsuit, unjust enrichment, return of investments. Our lawyer says we have a strong case." I backed toward my car, but Mom grabbed my wrist. 3 days. "Elena, drop your lawyer, sign over 40%, or we file." "And sweetie," her grip tightened, "we have friends at the hospital board. It would be such a shame if they heard about your financial troubles, your instability, might affect your job performance reviews." That night, I called Ava, panicked. "They're threatening my job, claiming I owe them for raising me." "Breathe," she said calmly. "First, child-rearing expenses aren't recoverable debts. That's established law. Second, they just threatened extortion and workplace harassment." "Did anyone witness this?" "The church parking lot has cameras." "Beautiful. Now listen carefully, they're panicking. This escalation means our filing scared them. They know we have something." But my parents weren't done. Letters started arriving at the hospital, addressed to my supervisor. Concerns about Elena's mental state. Family worried about her paranoia. Each one signed with their accountant credentials, making them look official and credible. Janet called me into her office. "I'm required to document these, but Elena, I've known you 4 years. This is clearly retaliation for something. Do I need to involve hospital legal? My lawyer is handling it." "Good. And for what it's worth, your timestamps for November 2nd show you were in surgery. Whatever they're claiming you did that day, you were here, saving lives." The whisper campaign started next. Mom called my cousins, my aunts, even my high school friends' parents. The story morphed with each telling I was ungrateful, possibly on drugs, definitely unstable, throwing my poor parents out of a house they'd helped maintain. Let them talk. Ava advised. Every lie they tell is another piece of evidence. Your cousin Rachel. She recorded your mom's call. Your Aunt Linda saved the Facebook messages. They're burying themselves. Noah intercepted the worst of it. He found my dad at his office, trying to convince Noah's employer that I was manipulating their son. Noah's boss, an Iraq veteran named Marcus who dealt with actual problems, laughed Leonard out of the building. Your dad actually tried to show my boss a bill for your diapers from 1997. Noah told me that night, holding me as I shook with rage. Marcus said it was the most pathetic thing he'd ever seen, and he's seen a lot. The final straw came in a certified letter. They were offering a settlement. I could keep the house if I paid them $120,000, or 60% of its value. They'd had it appraised without my permission, trespassing when I was at work. This is perfect, Ava said, reading the letter. They just admitted in writing that you're the current owner. They're demanding money to not pursue a fraudulent claim. That's extortion. Why are they doing this? I asked, exhausted. They have money. It's not about money. It's about control. You escaped them. And worse, you succeeded without them. That house is proof you don't need them. She was right. Every escalation, every threat, was really about forcing me back under their control. But they'd miscalculated. Their harassment had created a paper trail of their own proof of malicious intent, extortion, defamation. Keep documenting everything, Ava instructed. Every text, every encounter. We're adding harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress to our countersuit. They want to play dirty. We'll bury them in their own mud. The witness list grew like a garden of truth in poisoned soil. Ava worked methodically, building our legal fortress one sworn statement at a time. Ruthie Hale, my 81-year-old neighbor, became our star witness. She'd been home November 2nd, watching her stories and keeping an eye on the street like always. No notary came to Elena's house that day, she said firmly during her deposition. I would have seen. I see everything from my window. The only visitor was the FedEx man at 11:30 a.m., and Elena wasn't even home. The hospital's HR director, Marcus Thompson, provided more than just schedule confirmations. He pulled the security footage, badge swipes, and even the surgical log. Ms. Brooks was the assisting nurse for 3 procedures that day. The parking garage footage shows her car arriving at 6:45 a.m. and not leaving until 8:20 p.m. But the real breakthrough came from Noah's digital forensics. He'd spent nights analyzing the forged deeds metadata and found something beautiful. Look at this, he said, pulling up the file properties. The PDF was created October 28th at 9:14 p.m., but here's the kicker: it was created on a computer registered to Brooks & Associates Accounting. My parents' firm gets better. The Adobe license used to create it, registered to Martha Brooks. They literally signed their digital name to the forgery. Ava subpoenaed my parents' office computers. They fought it, claiming client privilege. But Judge Hart ruled that documents related to personal family matters weren't protected. When the forensic analyst examined the machines, she found the original deed file, plus 17 practice versions where they'd tried to perfect my signature. Dr. Sarah Hendricks, our handwriting expert, was brutal in her assessment. The signature on the deed shows hesitation marks inconsistent with natural signing. The pen pressure varies in ways that suggest tracing or careful copying. Most telling, there's a microscopic ink skip that appears in the exact same spot on 3 documents statistically impossible in genuine signatures. The notary investigation turned up gold. James Kellerman, facing his own legal troubles, agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. His statement was damning. Leonard Brooks approached me in September. He knew I'd lost my commission but still had my seal. He offered $5,000 cash to notarize a document without the signatory present. Said it was just family paperwork, nothing serious. Ava added witness tampering to our countersuit when we learned Dad had visited Kellerman after we filed, offering him $20,000 to forget the whole thing. My cousin Rachel proved unexpectedly brave. She'd recorded Mom's phone call on speaker while her husband listened. The recording captured Mom saying, "Elena's always been selfish. We're just taking what we deserve. That house was meant for me anyway. I'm the eldest child. Mother lost her mind at the end, or she never would have left it to that ungrateful brat." Even the bank provided evidence. The manager at First National, where my parents had that old joint account, reviewed their security footage. "Mrs. Brooks came in alone on October 27th, he testified. She said she needed transaction records for tax purposes. We see her photographing signature cards at the counter, including the one from Elena's old student account. The most satisfying evidence came from an unexpected source. My dad's own secretary, tired of covering for his shady dealings, quietly forwarded emails to Ava. In one, Dad wrote to Mom, "The notary is handled. Make sure E doesn't know about the filing until it's recorded. Once it's official record, possession is 9/10. She can't afford to fight us." Mom had replied, "She's working doubles all month. File it November 2nd when she's definitely at the hospital. The timing is perfect." "This shows clear premeditation," Ava explained. "They knew you'd be at work. They deliberately chose that date to avoid confrontation and create maximum confusion. We even found their practice runs. Dorothy at the recorder's office, now fully invested in our case, pulled records showing my parents had researched deed transfers, quiet claims, and partition actions for 6 months before filing. They'd attended a legal seminar on recovering family assets, where they'd taken extensive notes about deed fraud, though the presenter had been warning against it, not teaching it. Noah's boss, Marcus, volunteered as a character witness. Leonard Brooks tried to get me to fire Noah, claiming Elena was a gold digger destroying their family. When I refused, he threatened to badmouth my company to his business connections. I recorded that conversation. By the way, the final piece came from the Illinois State's Attorney's Office. They'd opened a criminal investigation based on our evidence. The investigator, Detective Rita Morse, interviewed my parents separately. The inconsistencies were glaring. Mom claimed I'd agreed verbally to the transfer, while Dad insisted I'd signed willingly. Neither could explain why a revoked notary was involved. "We're filing criminal charges," Detective Morse told me. "Forgery, fraud, conspiracy, and attempted grand theft. Your evidence is overwhelming." Ava compiled everything into a massive filing that landed on Judge Hart's desk like a legal bomb. Affidavits, forensic reports, recordings, emails, metadata analysis, expert testimony, over 300 pages of proof that my parents had systematically planned and executed an attempt to steal my home. "They wanted a fight," Ava said, organizing our courtroom exhibits. "They're about to learn what happens when accountants go up against someone who keeps better books than they do." The Willard County Courthouse stood like a brick sentinel against the December sky. Courtroom 3, Judge Eleanor Hart presiding. The nameplate on her bench might as well have read, "No nonsense accepted here." My parents arrived with their lawyer, William Strand, a silver-haired man who'd probably helped them craft this scheme. They wore their best conservative clothes, Dad in his navy suit, Mom in pearls and a modest dress, playing the wronged parents. I sat with Ava, Noah beside me in the gallery. My hands stayed steady on the table, though my heart hammered against my ribs. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her keys. The bailiff stood near the door, badge gleaming. "Case number 2024 CV 3847. The clerk announced, "Brooks versus Brooks, regarding title dispute and petition for partition of real property located at 4257 Maple Street." Strand went first, his voice smooth as oil. "Your Honor, this is a simple family matter that's been unnecessarily complicated. My clients, Martha and Leonard Brooks, provided substantial support for their daughter's home over the years. The deed transfer simply formalizes their existing interest in maintaining family property for the next generation." He painted them as devoted parents, pillars of the community, heartbroken by their daughter's inexplicable hostility. The checks they'd shown me in the church parking lot appeared as exhibits. Every birthday $20 from my childhood, tallied like an invoice. They've kept meticulous records of their investments in Elena's upbringing and ongoing support. Strand continued. The property transfer was discussed and agreed upon. The notarization issue is merely a clerical error that doesn't negate the underlying agreement. Judge Hart's expression remained neutral, but her pen moved steadily across her legal pad. Ava stood slowly, deliberately. Your Honor, this case isn't about family support or misunderstandings. It's about forgery, fraud, and attempted grand theft. We'll prove that Martha and Leonard Brooks deliberately forged their daughter's signature, used a disbarred notary, and filed fraudulent documents to steal a home they have no legal claim to. She started with the timeline. November 2nd, 2:15 p.m. The supposedly signed and notarized deed. Exhibit A. Ava placed the surgical log on the projector. Elena Brooks was in operating room 3, assisting with an emergency pediatric appendectomy. The timestamp glowed 1:30 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. Exhibit B through F. Security footage from 5 hospital cameras showing Ms. Brooks never left the building that day. Badge swipes confirming her location. The parking garage showing her car unmoved for 14 hours. Strand objected. Perhaps the date was mistaken. Exhibit G. Ava's voice cut through. Email between Martha and Leonard Brooks, dated October 29th. Quote, file it November 2nd when she's definitely at the hospital. The timing is perfect. Mom's face flushed. Dad's jaw tightened. Exhibit H. The notary seal used belongs to James Kellerman, commission number 4478826. This commission was revoked 10 months before the deed was supposedly notarized. Mr. Kellerman has provided a sworn affidavit that Leonard Brooks paid him $5,000 to illegally notarize this document. Judge Hart looked up sharply. The notary has confessed to fraud. Yes, Your Honor. He's cooperating with the state's attorney's criminal investigation. The judge's attention shifted to my parents. Mom gripped her purse. Dad straightened his tie. Exhibit I through L. Forensic analysis of the deed. The metadata appeared on screen. This document was created October 28th at 9:14 p.m. on a computer registered to Brooks & Associates Accounting, specifically Martha Brooks's workstation. It was created 5 days before it was supposedly signed. Additionally, Ava continued, we found 17 practice versions where they attempted to replicate Elena's signature. The handwriting expert testified next. Her presentation was clinical, devastating. Every hesitation mark, every pressure point, the telltale ink skip that appeared identically on multiple documents. This is not a genuine signature. It's a carefully crafted forgery. When Mom took the stand, her story crumbled under cross-examination. Mrs. Brooks, you claim Elena agreed to this transfer. She understood we needed to protect the family asset. Where did this signing take place? At her home. Who was present? Myself, Leonard, Elena, and the notary. Mr. Kellerman. Yes. Ava pulled up the video deposition. Kellerman's face filled the screen. I never went to any house. Leonard Brooks brought me the pre-signed document. He said his daughter had already signed it, just needed the seal. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Mrs. Brooks, you're under oath. Did you witness Elena sign this document? Silence stretched. Judge Hart leaned forward. Mrs. Brooks, answer the question. We signed on her behalf. We had her permission. Do you have any documentation of this permission? It was verbal. When did this verbal permission occur? I don't. Various times. Ava presented the power of attorney next, the one they'd doctored. This POA expired 5 years ago, yet you presented it to First National Bank last month. That's bank fraud, Mrs. Brooks. When Dad took the stand, he tried damage control. We were protecting our daughter's interests. She works long hours, doesn't understand property management. Mr. Brooks, Ava interrupted. Did you pay James Kellerman to notarize a document without the signatory present? I plead the fifth. Judge Hart's eyebrows rose. Mr. Brooks, this is a civil proceeding. You can't selectively invoke the Fifth Amendment after already testifying. Answer the question or I'll hold you in contempt. Dad's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Finally, I may have compensated him for his time. $5,000 for a notarization that typically costs $15. He was a family friend doing us a favor. A disbarred notary is a family friend. The damage was done. Every answer dug deeper. Every exhibit Ava presented, the emails, the bank records. My meticulous documentation of every penny spent on the house built an insurmountable wall of evidence. Judge Hart called for a 15-minute recess, but when she returned, her face could have been carved from granite. She adjusted her glasses, opened her folder, and began to speak in a voice that made the courtroom feel smaller. I've been on this bench for 22 years. I've seen family disputes that would break your heart and fraud schemes that would turn your stomach. But rarely have I seen such a calculated, deliberate attempt by parents to steal from their own child. Mom's hands trembled. Dad sat rigid as a corpse. The evidence is overwhelming and, frankly, appalling. Martha and Leonard Brooks conspired to forge their daughter's signature, paid a disbarred notary to illegally authenticate documents, and filed fraudulent papers with this county's recorder's office. She held up the deed. This document is not worth the paper it's printed on. But worse than the forgery itself is the premeditation. The emails between defendants show they deliberately chose a date when Elena Brooks would be performing life-saving surgery on a child. They weaponized her dedication to her profession against her. The judge's voice grew harder. Mr. Brooks, when I asked about the notary commission number, you claimed ignorance. Yet evidence shows you personally researched James Kellerman's revocation status before hiring him. You knew exactly what you were doing. Mrs. Brooks, the judge continued, turning her laser focus on Mom. You testified under oath that you witnessed your daughter sign this document. That was perjury. You've admitted you signed on her behalf without any legal authority to do so. Mom's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide how pale she'd gone. Her pearls rose and fell with her rapid breathing. The court's ruling is as follows, Judge Hart announced. First, the quitclaim deed dated November 2nd is declared null and void. It is ordered stricken from all county records. The quiet title action is granted in favor of Elena Brooks. She is confirmed as the sole owner of the property at 4257 Maple Street. Relief flooded through me, but the judge wasn't done. Second, the court finds Martha and Leonard Brooks engaged in litigation misconduct, including filing fraudulent documents and committing perjury. Sanctions are imposed in the amount of $35,000, payable to the court within 30 days. Strand started to object, but Judge Hart silenced him with a look. Third, all legal fees and court costs incurred by Elena Brooks in defending against this fraudulent action shall be paid by Martha and Leonard Brooks. Ms. Delgado, please submit your complete billing within 10 days. Fourth, her voice took on an even sharper edge. This court is issuing a restraining order. Martha and Leonard Brooks are prohibited from coming within 500 feet of the property at 4257 Maple Street or within 100 feet of Elena Brooks's person for a period of 1 year. Dad's face flushed purple. Shh, Your Honor, she's our daughter. A daughter you tried to rob. Judge Hart cut him off. Mr. Brooks, I strongly advise you to remain silent. She picked up another document. Finally, and most seriously, this court is referring this entire matter to the state's attorney for criminal prosecution. The evidence of forgery, fraud, conspiracy, and perjury is clear and convincing. I'm also referring both Martha and Leonard Brooks to the Illinois Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission, as their actions in this matter reflect poorly on their fitness to maintain professional accounting licenses. The gavel came down with a crack that made Mom flinch. Your Honor, Strand tried one last time. My clients are pillars of the community, perhaps some consideration. Mr. Strand, your clients are criminals who happened to target their own daughter. The only consideration I'm extending is not holding them in contempt for their behavior in my courtroom today. She looked directly at my parents. You should be ashamed. This young woman works 12-hour shifts saving children's lives, and you rewarded her dedication by trying to steal the only thing her grandmother left her. The bailiff stepped forward, not quite approaching, but making his presence known. The threat was implicit. Make a scene, and you'll leave in handcuffs. Mom stood unsteadily. Elena, please. Mrs. Brooks. Judge Hart's voice cracked like a whip. The restraining order is effective immediately. Any attempt to contact your daughter will result in your arrest. Ava began packing our documents, each one a nail that had sealed my parents' coffin. The surgical logs, the security footage, the emails where they'd planned every detail, the confession from Kellerman, the metadata that proved they'd created the forgery before the supposed signing date. But the moment that would haunt them, the one that made Dad's hands shake as he gathered his things, was when Judge Hart asked one final question. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, before you leave my courtroom, I want you to understand something. Your daughter didn't just win this case. She exposed you. Every business associate, every client, every friend will know what you tried to do. You attempted to steal from your own child, and you did it so incompetently that you left a trail of evidence a first-year law student could follow. She looked at the court reporter. Please ensure the state's attorney receives the complete transcript immediately. I want criminal charges filed before these two have time to destroy any additional evidence. The bailiff took a deliberate step toward my parents, and they finally moved toward the door. Mom looked back once, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. Dad pulled her along, his shoulders bent like he'd aged a decade in an hour. As they pushed through the courtroom doors, I heard Mom's voice, pitched high with hysteria. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Judge Hart said firmly, though they were already gone. She looked at me for the first time, and her expression softened slightly. Ms. Brooks, your home is safe. Go live your life. This court extends its apologies that you had to fight for what was already rightfully yours. The gavel came down one final time. Case closed. The courthouse steps felt different walking down than they had climbing up. The December wind still bit through my coat, but I barely noticed. My phone buzzed with Ava's text. Your home is officially safe. Noah's hand found mine, warm and steady. We didn't speak during the drive back to Maple Street. There wasn't need for words yet, just the quiet recognition that something fundamental had shifted. The people who'd raised me had tried to destroy me, and I'd survived. The house looked exactly the same when we pulled up. White paint still peeling, shutters still needing work, but bathed in afternoon light. It seemed to glow. Grandma May's wind chimes sang their familiar song as I walked up the path. I turned the key to my house and stepped inside. Everything was as I'd left it that morning, coffee cup in the sink, yesterday's scrubs over the chair, the hospital schedule magneted to the fridge. But it all felt different now. Confirmed, protected, mine. Noah headed to the kitchen to make tea while I stood in the living room, holding the court judgment. The legal language was dense, but certain phrases stood out: sole owner, fraudulent claim dismissed, criminal referral issued. My phone rang. Janet from the hospital. Elena, I just wanted you to know your parents' lawyer called to withdraw all those letters about your mental state. He also mentioned your parents are closing their accounting firm and leaving Illinois. They're leaving. Apparently, the criminal charges and professional review board make it impossible to continue practicing here. After I hung up, I walked to Grandma May's old office. Her filing cabinet sat in the corner, the one where I'd kept every receipt, every document, every piece of evidence that had saved me. On the wall hung her favorite photo, the two of us at my nursing pinning ceremony, her proud smile radiating joy. I kept the house, Grandma, I whispered to the photo, just like you knew I would. Noah appeared in the doorway. You okay? They're leaving the state, starting over somewhere else. Good riddance. I know, but I touched the photo frame. They're still my parents. Some part of me wanted them to just be better. They made their choice, Elena. Every forged signature, every lie in court, Every threat, those were choices. He was right. The parents I'd wanted, the ones who'd love me without calculating my value, had never existed. The real Martha and Leonard Brooks had shown themselves in that courtroom, people who saw their daughter as a resource to exploit. I placed the judgment in the filing cabinet, in a new folder labeled Victory. Then I closed the drawer firmly. The evidence of their betrayal would stay locked away, proof if I ever needed it, but not something I'd dwell on. That evening, I sat on the porch steps, watching the sun set over Riverton. The restraining order meant they couldn't come here, couldn't call, couldn't try to manipulate me back into their orbit. For the first time in my life, I was truly free of them. My phone buzzed with messages. Cousin Rachel. Heard what happened. Aunt Martha called crying. Good for you for standing up to them. Ruthie from next door shuffled over with a casserole. Saw the news about the court case. Dear, your grandma would be so proud. She always knew those two were poison. Even Marcus, Noah's boss, texted, Your dad came by to apologize for the misunderstanding. I told him to pound sand. Drinks on me when you're ready to celebrate. But I didn't feel like celebrating. I felt hollow, carved out, like I'd survived a storm by letting it strip everything away except the foundation. The house was mine, protected by law and court order. My parents were gone, facing criminal charges and professional ruin. I'd won everything and lost the illusion of ever having had a real family. Noah stayed over that night, holding me as I finally let myself cry, not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd never had. The parents who should have protected me, guided me, loved me without condition. Instead, I'd gotten accountants who'd kept a ledger of my worth. 3 days later, a final envelope arrived. Not from my parents, they couldn't contact me, but from their lawyer. Inside was a single sheet they'd agreed to pay all sanctions and legal fees rather than face criminal trial. In exchange for dropping charges, they'd signed a permanent agreement never to contact me or contest the home's ownership. I was free. Standing in my kitchen, I set the letter on the counter next to Grandma May's photo. Her eyes seemed to twinkle, as if she'd known all along how this would end. She'd left me more than a house, she'd left me the chance to build a life without them. I picked up my keys, ran my thumb over the worn metal. Tomorrow I'd go back to the hospital, back to saving lives and working doubles. But tonight, I locked my door, and knew that no one could take this from me. The house was mine. The life was mine. The choice to never look back was mine. And that was enough. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about standing up to family members who've wronged you. Have you ever had to protect what's yours from people who should have protected you? Let me know in the comments.